but I promised you that you'll not float. It's something quite easy, and it's something which you need to use in all our daily lives. And today we want to focus on creative teaching. It is one of the components of HNS 403 curriculum and instruction in nursing. This creative teaching is not only done in curriculum and instruction alone, it's something which you'll be doing every day of your life. When you're going to teach, when you're going for teaching practice, when you're going for your continuing education requirements during management rotation. So it's a skill you use all over. So we want to look at a few things. We want to look at definition of creativity, the dimensions of creativity. Then we'll talk about creative teaching, and we'll talk about characteristics of a creative teacher. That may not necessarily flow as it is, but we'll see how we can make it as cogent as possible. So, what is creativity? In a nutshell, creativity basically means you use a different thinking process and you generate different kinds of knowledge. Creativity is part of the 4 C's necessary to succeed in the 21st century. And as we can guess, the 4 C's include the critical thinking, which is a course or a subsection you've done during your communication skills course. We have creativity, which means you think in a very unique way. And we have collaboration, which means you cannot succeed as one, and you work together as a team to produce more. We rely on each other's synergy. And then we have the 4C necessary to succeed in the 21st century, which is communication. Are you able to effectively and efficiently convey ideas, sell yourself to others, market yourself, market your knowledge and skills? Okay, so I want to ask us, let's proceed and look at what most of you have mentioned, and you're actually right, that creative teachers are knowledgeable, creative teachers are student-focused. Their work is just to ensure that students succeed. And their motivation is to ensure that students succeed. And creative teachers are also confident teachers. Apart from those, there are other characteristics of a creative teacher, including being a risk taker. Creative teachers are not afraid of making mistakes. They make mistakes, yes, but they also learn from the mistakes. The creative teachers are flexible and they're non-conformists. They leave room for surprising. And creative teachers are also familiar with different teaching strategies. There's a link there which I have given you. That link is not exhaustive. We'll be looking at a few later. I encourage you to go through and see what are these interesting incentives and strategies teachers use to engage students, and you'll be able to see if you can borrow them for your teaching experience. So if those are creative teachers, then it means creative teachers do creative teaching. And creative teaching is basically a novel and a very useful way of promoting students' growth. And apart from developing students or promoting students' growth, creative teaching assists in development of original thoughts and actions. If it focuses on development of original thoughts and actions, then we need to focus on both delivery methods so that we can be able to have the action and we can be able to have an effect on students. Then we can be able to say we've stimulated them to think in a different way. Creative teaching does not mean that we do everything for the student. Creative teaching basically means we inspire the students so that they're able to go and find other resources which are of interest, and then they can be able to beef up what they have learned, or consolidate what they have learned, or enrich what they've already learned in class. And creative teaching encourages students to find solutions on their own. And we can talk of creative teaching when we have development of problem solving skills. You're going to do problem solving skills, then it means you have to find solutions. You can be able to find solutions using imaginative approaches, thinking out of the box. We can be able to create solution givers through increased engagement, and that is only possible if we create excitement to learn. So creative teaching is a more effective approach, and teachers design imaginative lessons or creative efforts, and then we customize those lessons and efforts depending on the teacher's skills, perspectives, and experience. Let me pause there and ask us, who is one of the teachers in your training, not necessarily the BSN program, who you've ever found creative? It could be a teacher in your clinical area, a teacher in the classroom. What was it so special about them? What did they do creatively which you have not forgotten to date? I'll ask us to share our experiences. Creative teaching, and I'm sure Joy has something she can tell us. Creative teaching is not just done in oral classrooms. They can also be done especially in our clinical areas. So apart from these ambiguous lectures, there are other ways of doing creative teaching, especially at the university level. And you may do seminars, which are usually small group teaching. Sometimes they're called tutorials. We have research seminars where we tell you go and research on this particular topic and come and present to your colleagues. We have exercise classes. We give you a few exercises to do. We have workshops, classroom-based practical classes or laboratory. I want to believe some of you have gone to the skills lab and you've met one Madam Mogane, and you've been able to do a lot of those workshops. We also have problem-solving sessions, and we give you a challenge, and we tell you go and find out how you can solve that challenge. Is it a medical condition in the ward? We tell you this is a patient, this is how they are presenting. Please go find out what could be happening to this patient, what diagnosis we need to make, how do we manage this patient. Those are some of the ways to do creative teaching. Demonstrations in classrooms. We have internships or placement, and you're going to be doing that in a while towards the end of your course. We have work-based practice, which most of us have had. We have field work. We have online and distance or e-learning. And I want to believe a section of our class has that. We also have something more modern, which is called simulation and serious gaming, virtual reality. And that has become very common, especially in this generation we are living in. All of you seem to just love technology. So we decided to challenge you on going to do serious gaming and virtual simulation. We may not have the VR machines or headsets, but we'll be able to do a creative game probably at the end of this lesson. Now, when you go to your clinical teaching, or when you go to teach in the ward during both management course, you're expected to give a number of continuing education sessions, you need to think of approaches which would be best suited to teach the topic. And I imagine if today I asked you to think of how to give this particular lecture on creative teaching, I'm sure you'd be able to come up with different methods. But for now, let me mention 2 or 3. One of the techniques which are used in creative teaching, and this is not the end of it, is something called assumption busting. An example, we sit here, or we actually go every day to the wards, and in the morning, all of us seem to follow the same routine of doing handover reports in the morning. Have you ever sat and thought, we need to bust the previously unquestioned assumption? We always assume that it is a procedure which must be followed and there's a systematic way of doing it. What if we woke up one day and decided, I don't think it's adding a lot of value. I think we could do it in a different way. We also have something called brain sketching. In brain sketching, it's very simple. I get a chart. I ask one student to suggest or draw a way of solving a problem. For example, we have the emergency department of KNH handling regular emergencies, and we also have sudden Ebola patients brought into the ER. So I give one student a chart and I tell them, draw or write how you think we can be able to solve that problem. And then that student writes one thing and passes on the sketch, the same sheet of paper, to the next student, and they add their ideas. Can you imagine what would have happened by the end of, how many of us are in class? By the end of 14 or 13 of us sharing their ideas on one particular sheet to give us a lot of ideas. Then we have old sweet brainstorming, which you know. We have concept mapping, which I believe Dr. Wagoro has taught you a lot about it. We have exaggeration. You sit and assume that if we give this particular intervention, then all the patients are going to get well. Does it always work? We have fishbone. Fishbone analysis is you questioning why. Why did you come to class today late? Because you are attending to a patient past your working hours. Why are you attending your patient past working hours? Because the other nurses reported late. Why did the nurses report late? Because 1, 2, 3. And you ask all that fishbone of why. And then we have Kipling questions, we have laundering, we have negative brainstorming, role playing, and there are many others. I'm going to give you a link which explains all those in details. I just want to mention one, which out of all those suggested ways of engaging students creatively, one which is called Scamper. And the S stands for substitute. If you are given a scenario to solve and we give you a specific method to approach that scenario, then you want to ask yourself, what can you substitute? Let me give you an example. You have been sent to an MCH-FP clinic. You need to give vaccines. In the middle of it, you realize you do not have sufficient supplies. You probably do not have the right size of needles, or you don't have needles. You realize maybe the mothers are coming late. You realize it's a hot environment, and yet you need to give effective vaccines. Using scamper, what do we feel we could substitute? I'll leave it that to us. I've told you, we need to give vaccines. Yes, vaccines are there. We do not have the right kind of needles, and we do not have the place is very hot, so, and we need to give effective vaccines. How do we approach it? Using the scam time, we can progress. Supposing you decided to look for a needle which can do the same work. Is that possible? And probably you instead of postponing the vaccines, you communicated earlier to the mothers to be there very early, so that you're able to give the vaccine before the environment interferes with the same. So you would have been able to adapt. And the earlier respondent told us for them, they'd rather just change the date and tell them to come another day. What if we put whatever is there to other use? So instead of just giving in our clinic and we see it's going to get damaged, we share it with other clinics, probably within the same morning. What can you eliminate? And what could be able to rearrange? And you can think how you can use scamper in a situation where we have MCHFP. So we have many other ways of creative teaching. I will give you a handout to read on. But most important, we need to inculcate those skills and master competencies. How would I be able to tell whether students or my students have been able to achieve competence in specific skills, and especially if I have applied creative teaching methods? 1. The students will feel more competent and confident to put forward an opinion. They should be able to relate research findings to theory and their own circumstances. They should have no problem in writing essays or reports on findings from readings and research, especially on creative teaching. They should be able to feel free and able to criticize or critically evaluate presentations, reports, and others. And they should feel more comfortable receiving criticisms themselves. So remember, the overall objective of introduction of creative teaching methods is to ensure that students achieve competencies in the specific fields, whether it is hands-on skill, whether it is writing skills, whatever skills we want to teach using creative methods, the student should achieve competency in those skills. Now, researchers in creative thinking have brought up very specific themes. In order for us to say we are conducting creative teaching and creative thinking, we come up with 4 main themes. 1 is diversity in learning. It's not everybody who can sit in a lecture and understand what you're talking about. There are those who would rather go and do it practically. So are we able to diversify our learning methods? Can we give students freedom to learn? There are those who would rather sit and listen to this lecture. There are those who would say, I'd rather go and listen to it so that I can play back and forth and be able to understand what the lecturer was talking about. But most important, every student should learn with confidence, and we should be able to work through group works. So, if you notice, we try giving you different diverse learning methods. There are those who refer to a reading material. There are those who listen to class. There are those who we tell watch. There are those we tell go and do it practically. But most important, all of us have freedom to learn. And I believe that all have capability of learning. And I keep saying, when we come here, we do not just teach you anything. We just give you an opportunity to learn. We hope that as we continue learning, we are learning with confidence, and we have learned to work in teams. That is why we give you different group works, and we tell you you present as a group, and all of you earn same marks as long as you worked as a group. Okay, so today being a very end of term lecture, especially before Christmas, we not want to take a lot of time. I just want us to apply creative teaching methods. Yeah, we were coming to that one. And I've given you a number of papers which I want you to go and review. And I'll send you these slides. And one of the papers I want you to read is on gamification, which is a good way of teaching. The others is problem-based learning. Most of us who have who went to school in Moy University, for example, are familiar with problem-based learning. But for the purposes of today, I want us to focus on technology. So if you go online and you look for Play Fun, or you just Google 5 online educative nursing games, I want us to try that. You go and find one of them called Prognosis Your Diagnosis is Free. It is an online game which gives us ideas on how to handle different medical conditions, and we will see whether that would be a practical, innovative learning or creative learning way. So I'm going to stop the slides and